that first and foremost, there are two levels of poverty. The multidimensional poverty that we see that people are extremely poor. These are most cases pigeons. People who have no skills, probably not even educated. And for you to make sure that people get out of that level, you must look at what dominates the local economies in the various areas and encourage it. In Nigeria, we're an agrarian society. And that is why we did very well in agriculture. If you interview Akin, the president, ADD president, he will tell you what we did. It was because of what we did in agriculture that made him to even be appointed or elected as the president of the African Development Bank. So that is to make sure that that was form of poverty at that level. Then, of course, the other level is, look, we cannot continue. Nigeria, we are known for crude oil. We export crude oil, then we import petroleum products. This is not ironical. We export the crude oil. Then we go to other countries to import aviation fuel, we import DMS for our cars, we import kerosene. So we started encouraging that, look, we must have refineries. The government refineries were all broken down. We tried to reactivate them, but it was always a problem. So the only thing is to encourage the private sector. And we started the journey. Now, Dangote, in fact, Nigeria is no longer importing petroleum products. We started that journey. And we didn't do much in the solid mineral sector. Maybe because there were too many, we changed the ministers too frequently. But that was my directive to any of the ministers that I appointed. We cannot continue to export raw material. Go to Nigeria, go to states like Zamfara State, where the poverty level is quite high. Out of school population is quite high. When I was in office, it was about 70% of children were not going to school. So you can see the level at which people operate. But you have gold. And people from modern nationalities, from what you see, are just using the locals to steal and send it out of the country. So until we are able to exploit our own resources, add value to our own resources, and export finished produce, we cannot just claim we are rich, we are poor. That is clear. Then when we talked, maybe you talked about the issues of corruption in Africa. Yes, though sometimes some of these corruption issues that we read in the papers are somehow blown out of proportion. Let me give you an example. To me, when I came into office, 2011, I signed the Freedom of Information Bill into law, passed a law to give journalists and people in civil society free access to get any information you want to get from any department of government. Somebody who wants to be stealing money will not do that. So that if we hear anything, whistleblow anything, you are free to go. And if the government official fail to give you that information, it's a criminal offense. We did that. When we were to celebrate 2010, when we were to celebrate 50 years of our independence, 50 years of Nigerian independence, that's something I did with my cabinet. Probably if my governor here, maybe if he attended the council meeting that day, he will remember. I bought this book written by Richard Dolan called Africa, Altered States, Ordinary Miracles, and talks about all kinds of things across. It's a British journalist that has been covering Africa since 1975. When he talks about Nigeria, life in Lagos, corruption in Nigeria, and so on. I bought that book and distributed to council members, and I also bought this Singaporean man's book, From Third to First, Atiku Abubakar or so. Yes, I said they should read. Then I asked them to read the section on Nigeria, especially from Richard's book. So I told them that this program, we'll have a conference like this, but we're going to invite that man to be the keynote speaker. And my own minister said, President, no. That this man that finished us, no, you cannot bring him. said the man did not finish us. We must invite him, let him come and speak. Let us know the perception of people about us. Some may be ordinary perception, some may be real. Let us not deceive us. Well, as executive president, I forced on my ministers. We invited that man.
You made an executive order.
No. Then I also invited one lady, a white lady from South African journalist that wrote a book based in Korean politics. This is our turn to chop. You know this lady, Michelle, yes, wrong, yes, Michelle Wrong. As one of the panelists, Kenya and Nigeria have some similar attributes in terms of certain things. And my ministers were looking at me. I said, they must come. We must interact with them. And we had the conference. Daddy said that when he got the invitation, he said, he was surprised that probably the president is inviting him so that the president will hurt him because of what he wrote about Nigeria. But that is my mind. So it was totally committed to, we can't eradicate corruption completely, but should be able to reduce it to the level that will not affect society again. At least one country that has done well recently is Rwanda. Kagame is doing quite well in terms of that. I did not succeed to that level. I know during my government there was this scandal, which was more political than, and those who read it. For example, the CBN governor, the head of my treasury, raised an alarm that we lost $49.8 billion between January 2012 and July 2013. That's a period of 1 year, 7 months. When you call $59.8 billion, just call it $50 billion. And it was surprising. And I don't think from the income, the oil incomes, I don't think when the IOCs, the operators remove their own and so on, what the government and cannot be up to that within that space of time. It's a lot of money. Later on, when there was so much talks about it, it changed it to 12 billion. Later, it changed it to 20 billion. So, even the figures, though everybody talks about for the 49.8, but the 12 billion later mentioned and 20 billion later mentioned. The Senate has to investigate and using consultants. One of the senators is here, Senator Nengi, and they did not see the money. Government has to use PWD, PricewaterhouseCoopers, to audit. And PricewaterhouseCoopers say that here, NNPC cannot properly give proper account to about $1.48 billion. They queried that they did not say it was stolen, but in terms of documentation and so on, they couldn't give proper account. But the story is that under Jonathan, the country lost $50 billion. I remember that year when we have a conference between Africa and Europe, EU. So when we went to Brussels, of course, Angela Merkel, then the Chancellor of Germany, asked me for a bilateral. So she invited me. So I have to go there with some of my ministers. Immediately we got in. She did not even allow me to sit down. Said President Jonathan, that Nigeria lost $49.8 billion. I just looked at her and said, well, Your Excellency, you know, Germany, the economy is quite strong. So 49.8, just call 50 billion. So your economy is strong. So if you lose $50 billion, you'll not notice it. But in Nigeria, if we lose $50 billion, the federal government, the state governments will not be able to pay salaries. Yes. So she just turn and look at me and say, well, even in Germany, $50 billion is a lot of money. And ended there. So people will just hear some of these figures. That when you go into it, it is not quite correct. So yes, there is corruption in Africa, there is corruption in Nigeria, no doubt about that.
Yes.
But some of the stories are not absolutely correct.